onwards, Krishna starts answering Arjuna's question by telling him that in the two paths of renunciation and action, the path of action is better than the path of renunciation. The path of karma is better than the path of, and Krishna gives the reason why he says so. So as you can see here, what happens to a person if he renounces prematurely? So when a person without sufficient qualification, without sufficient purification of the heart, without sufficient development of knowledge, try to renounce the world, then what happens? And he take karma sannyas. Karma sannyas means sannyas from the activities. He doesn't perform any activity. He go to Himalayas or the forest and sit in meditation. If somebody prematurely try to do that, then what's going to happen? He is going to revert back to material actions. For such a person cannot remain inactive. So if the heart is impure, impure heart means if the heart still have desires to enjoy the world, one should not prematurely renounce from the activities. Otherwise, even though he try to renounce, he has to again come in this world back to perform his activity. So then Krishna says in 3.3 to 3.339, he explains that Nishkam Karma Yoga is better than Jnana Yoga. And Krishna gives various reasons in these 6 verses. Some of the reasons are written here. Some of the reasons that Krishna gives, that people try to renounce work thinking that they can be inactive. But Krishna explains that, my dear Arjuna, the very nature of the soul is to be active. Inaction or inactivity is very, very unnatural. Nobody can remain inactive even for a moment. And if somebody try to prematurely renounce, then he will neither advance in spiritual life, nor he will be able to enjoy this world, nor he will attain the purification of heart. And then even Krishna goes to say this also, that, Are Baba, you cannot even maintain your body without work. What you will eat if you don't work? So that's why Krishna says that instead of renouncing the activity, one should work with the spirit of detachment, like that. So Krishna goes on saying like this. You see this photo here. The gentleman is sitting in the forest trying to do meditation. So Krishna says in the verse 3.4 that not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reactions, and nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. And we all have seen, and we also have experienced, that so many so-called spiritualists, sadhus, babas, yogis, they try to renounce the world artificially, go to Himalayas, go to forest. But what happens to them? After some time, you find them indulging in different kind of scandalous behaviors, and they cannot maintain their renunciation. As you can see in the picture, see this sadhu, so-called sadhus. One sadhu is smoking ganja, and some other so-called sadhus, they are playing football. So Krishna is telling that better to perform karma yoga, nishkam karma yoga, actions without attachment, than to completely renounce actions. Otherwise, this will be the situation of people who try to artificially renounce the actions. They will not be able to maintain their renunciation. So therefore, such kind of renunciation Krishna condemns. And Krishna goes on to that one should work without attachment, and one should do one's duties, prescribed duties, and gradually get purified. Now, when Krishna is telling this, one doubt is coming to Arjuna's mind. You know what the doubt is? The doubt is this. But what Arjuna is thinking, that Krishna, you are saying me that path of action is better than the path of renunciation. But what about the bondage which will come if I perform karma? I have heard that there's a karma bandhana. When you perform karma, it binds you in this world. So that's why Krishna, I was thinking renunciation is better, but you are saying me that the path of action is better, but the path of action will not bind me. So this is Arjuna's doubt, which Krishna is already decoding. So therefore, in order to answer Arjuna's doubt that how karma will not bind you, Krishna explains the difference between karma and karma yoga. So my dear friends, very important slide, very important point, difference between karma and karma yoga. So Arjuna wanted to avoid work out of the fear that he will develop material attachments and desires, and especially he feared that he will bound up in reactions. Therefore, Lord Krishna explained him the difference between ordinary entangling work and karma yoga, which frees one from bondage and carries one to liberation. My dear friends, many times people say karma hi puja hai, or work is worship. So Krishna is clarifying this point here that not every work is worship. But when you perform your work with a particular attitude, in a particular consciousness, with a particular objective and motive, which we are going to discuss, then only the karma becomes karma yoga, or the work becomes worship. And that kind of work which becomes worship will not bind a person in karma bandhan. Otherwise, simply performing work will definitely bound a person. So what is happening to Arjuna is, in why he got that doubt, that he is thinking that jnana or renunciation and karma are two different things. They are not compatible with each other. But Krishna is giving the understanding that through karma yoga, we can make knowledge of soul, jnana, and knowledge of action, karma, compatible to each other. So the goal which people try to attain by renouncing the world, which is freedom from reaction and attainment of liberation, the same goal can be attained without renouncing the world, but rather remaining in the world and doing one's duty, prescribed duty, with a spirit of detachment. And that is called as karma yoga. And to make it very, very practical for Arjuna, Krishna says this very beautiful verse in the Bhagavad Gita 3.9. He says, Yagyat Yagyathat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartham karma konteya mukta sanga samacharaha. What is the translation? Krishna is saying that work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work in this world binds one and becomes the cause of bondage. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your duties for his satisfaction. Whose satisfaction? Not mine satisfaction. The Supreme Lord's satisfaction, Vishnu's satisfaction, or Krishna's satisfaction. And in that way, you will always remain free from bondage. So, my dear friends, here comes a very, very, and very important point. If we want to attain liberation, if we want to attain perfection, if we want to attain the goal of life, then we need not to renounce and go to Himalayas or jungle. We can perform all our duties, what we do, job, business, studies, whatever. But we have to do everything for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. For the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, in the path of Karma Yoga or Nishkam Karma Yoga, we don't say people to change their activities. The emphasis is not on changing the activities. The emphasis is on changing the attitude. The emphasis on changing the consciousness. The emphasis on changing from bhoga vritti to seva vritti. From selfish enjoyment to selfless service. That is the focus. So that's what Krishna explained in from 3.3 to 3.9. So saying Arjuna that Arjun, you need not to renounce and go to forest or jungle, but rather you can perform your duty, but do them with the spirit of detachment and for the satisfaction of Vishnu. Now, my dear friends, when Krishna told like this, Arjuna got a doubt. And in fact, we all might be also getting that doubt. The doubt is this. The doubt is that Okay, sir, you are saying me that I should, perform my activities for the satisfaction of the Lord, not for my satisfaction. But what if I am not prepared to give up the results of my activities to the Lord, because I am still very much attached to enjoying this world. I still have so many desires. I still have so many aspirations. I still want to enjoy this world. I am not prepared yet to give the results of my work to Krishna, to God, to perform karma yoga. I am still attached to perform karma only and to enjoy the results of karma. Then what you will say? Huh? So Arjuna is thinking, so Krishna is thinking that if Arjuna even thinks like this, so then now in the next section, which is 3.10 to 3.16, Krishna is going to answer this question that in case you have not yet advanced in spiritual life to such a degree that you can give all the results of your activities to God, then you can take one step behind, and from karma yoga you can come to karma kanda. But for what purpose? So that by performing karma kanda you can eventually come to karma yoga. So that's why in this section of 3.10 to 3.16, Krishna explains how to perform karma kanda and how by performing karma kanda one can go to karma yoga. Now, what is the difference between karma kanda and karma yoga? Very simple. So, my dear friends, karma kanda means, karma kanda is a section of the Vedas which prescribe worship of various demigods, devatas and devis, for getting various fruits and various results for enjoying this world. Like when one can worship Surya for getting good health, one can worship Uma, Parvati for getting a good wife, one can worship Lord Shiva for getting a good husband. So in this way, there are various demigods, devatas in this world, and the scriptures, the Karma Kanda section of the scriptures gives various duties for people to worship this demigod so that they can fulfill their desires to enjoy this world. Now, why do the Vedas or the scriptures give such kind of preference? Because you see, my dear friends, it is not a very astonishing thing that people in this world are not easily inclined for spiritual life. Most of the people, majority of the people are still on the material platform of life where they want to enjoy life, where they want to work hard and enjoy the fruits. Correct? So, as I told in the beginning, that the goal of life is self-realization. So the scriptures, they are very careful. God is so merciful that God is thinking that if people try to satisfy their desires whimsically, independently, without referring to the scriptures, then they will commit sinful actions, papa karma, and they will degrade to sinful life. So therefore, the scriptures gives the prescription that, okay, they say, okay, you want to enjoy na, correct? You want to enjoy this world? Okay, no problem. You can enjoy, but you do some karma kanda activity, worship some devatas, worship some demigods, and do some duties, and then you enjoy. So that you will enjoy also, and you will not get sinful reaction also. And by such regulated enjoyment, according to the direction of the scriptures, you will gradually elevate in your consciousness. Your heart will gradually purify, and then you will come to a point where you will have no more desires to enjoy this world, and at that time you will come to the stage of karma yoga. So Krishna is explaining here the process of going from karma kanda to karma yoga, because as I told in the previous slide, that somebody may say that I am not prepared yet to give the results of my activities to God. So Krishna says, no problem. Then you perform karma kanda, get the results, enjoy life, get frustrated eventually, and get purified, and then you will be able to perform karma yoga. So that's what the karma kanda to karma yoga says, that you can satisfy your desires in a religious way and get purified and elevated in spiritual consciousness instead of whimsically trying to satisfy your desires. For example, one example will help you to understand this. The example is that, for example, everybody in this world has sex desire, correct? So now, for fulfilling this desire of sex, the Vedic scriptures prescribe the process of marriage, where every man can have one wife and every wife can have one husband, and they can fulfill this desire in a regulated way, in a religious way. And gradually, by fulfilling this desire in a religious way, they can rise above this desire. But suppose if people don't follow this institution of marriage, as is happening in the today's modern society, people are having live-in relationships and boyfriend-girlfriend business, then what is happening? On the name of fulfilling their desire to enjoy, they are committing sin, pap, which is degrading them to the animal life, which is bringing sinful reactions to them. That's why the Karma Kanda section of the scriptures give people the facility to fulfill their desires in a religious way and gradually purify their consciousness and rise to the platform of Karma Yoga. That's what. So now, for understanding this transition from Karma Kanda to Karma Yoga, Krishna explains one very important concept, which is called as the concept of the yoga ladder. Now, my dear friend, it is very, very important concept, little technical, but very important. Now, in this short session, it's not possible to explain everything about the yoga ladder, but I will just show you the yoga ladder charts so that you will have some idea of what is the meaning of yoga ladder, which Krishna explains. So as you can see here, there are 3 types of yoga ladder, which is explained. The first one is called as the extended yoga ladder. So I request your attention here. You can kindly see the yoga ladder from the below. See first the animal life, which is given below. So everybody in this world have animalistic propensities in their life, desire to eat, sleep, mate, defend, because human being is also called as a social animal. So when a person does not follow the Vedic scriptures and live a whimsical life, he is no better than an animal. Then when a person starts to follow the Vedic scriptures, but with a desire to fulfill one's own desires, he worships various demigods, and that is called as Karma Kanda. And then by following Karma Kanda, he gets purified, and then he comes to the stage of Sakama Karma Yoga. Sakama Karma Yoga means what happens in this stage? A person gives the fruit of his activities to people. For example, he may do a lot of charity. He may give charity in a cancer hospital, or he give charity in temple, or he may give charity. But the purpose of his giving charity is not selfish, because he wants some name and fame in this world. He wants people to know that how much charitable I am. I am very charitable person. So although he's doing karma yoga, he's giving up the fruits, but it is sakam. He wants name, fame, and in return, a lot of wealth. Then a person, when he follows karma yoga, sakam karma yoga, he comes to nishkam karma yoga, where he can give up the fruits of the activities without any personal interest. For example, he will give charity, but he will not demand anything in return. He don't want any name and fame. And then after performing nishkam karma for many, many years and many, many lifetimes sometimes, then a person may come to the platform of Jnana Yoga, where he will renounce work because he will become qualified. He will get the adhikar to renounce work, and then he will get Jnana Yoga. He will go to forest and he will only accumulate knowledge. Such a Jnana Yogi, he attains the Brahman platform. He merges into the impersonal absolute. Then after many lifetimes of practicing Jnana Yoga, one may come to Ashtanga Yoga, where he becomes a yogi in Himalaya. I meditate and see the super soul, Paramatma, in the heart. And after many lifetimes of performing such yoga, a person may come to the platform of bhakti or devotional service. So this is the extended yoga ladder. Now, there are simple yoga ladders also, which we are going to discuss, which is more practical for all of us. But before I explain that, I would like to mention one point, that The purpose of explaining this yoga ladder is that our goal of life is to attain bhakti, devotion, devotional service, pure love for the God, for Krishna. That is the goal of all the scriptures, of all the religious path. The goal is to attain prema, love of God. But then, because people don't know how, so gradually they go from this path, because people have a lot of material desires. So as we follow the Vedic scriptures, we go from one step to the other step in this ladder. Now, as you can see here, there is the second yoga ladder, which is called as the progressive yoga ladder. So in this, what is happening? Some steps are getting cut. So a person from animal life is directly going to karma kand, sakam karma, nishkam karma. In nishkam karma is performing sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti means accepting a guru and doing bhakti under the direction of guru. And then directly he develops love for God. He comes to the stage of bhava bhakti and prema bhakti, which are the stages of love of God. So you see here in this progressive yoga ladder, the path of Jnana yoga and Ashtanga yoga, which requires the renunciation of work, is removed. This means it's a very good news for all of you. What's the good news? The good news is that in order to attain the goal of life, love for God, you need not to renounce activities as told in the extended yoga ladder, where the path of Jnana and Ashtanga is also there. So the difference between extended yoga ladder and the progressive yoga ladder is, you can see the two steps of Jnana and Ashtanga yoga, which are impractical in this age of Kali Yuga, and in which one has to renounce activities, that is removed. So without renouncing activities, you can attain the goal of life, bhakti. And there's one more yoga ladder, which is even shorter, which is like the express train, which is like an elevator, which is even more faster. And this yoga ladder is called as the, as you can see on the left hand side, the express elevator. So in this yoga ladder, there are only 4 steps to perfection. After animal life, the first and the direct step is that you find out a Vaishnava guru in your life, a pure devotee of God, like Srila Prabhupada. Like this pure devotee, you find out, you surrender to him, you follow the instruction, and you associate with him. He will engage you in sadhana bhakti, which means he will give you some simple rules and regulation to serve the Lord, to worship the Lord. And then you will develop bhava and prema within 4 effects. So you can compare here. See on the right hand side, the extended yoga ladder, which will take lifetimes after lifetimes after lifetime to attain perfection. Better than that is the progressive yoga ladder, but better than that is the express elevator. So in our Krishna consciousness movement, in ISKCON society, we encourage everyone to follow the express elevator. So if you chant Hare Krishna every day, and if you study Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, if you associate with devotees, if you take prasadam, if you chant the holy names, participate in kirtan, then you are directly following the express elevator. And doing this does not require for you to renounce your activities. So in this way, we understood the concept of the yoga ladder. So why we explained the concept of yoga ladder? Because Krishna is trying to explain Arjuna how to go from karma kanda to karma yoga. So karma kanda to karma yoga is next step in the yoga ladder only. Correct? Like that. So in going from karma kanda to karma yoga, Krishna explains that in the karma kanda, as I told, people worship various demigods, and when they worship the demigods, when the demigods are happy, then demigods, the devatas, they give all the necessities of life to the people. They give sunshine, moonshine, rains, winds, seasons, different kind of grains, like that. So now somebody may have this question that, sir, you are telling me to worship demigod, devatas, karma kanda, all this process, but frankly telling you that, I don't need to worship these demigods to fulfill my desires, because I can, I can work in a company, or I can work in a business, or I can start my own business, and I can earn money, and I can enjoy life. Why I need to worship the demigods? So you see, my dear friends, Krishna says that even if you work in a job, or you have your business, or whatever occupation, you are still obliged to fulfill the prescribed duty mentioned in the scriptures, the worship of the demigods, if you have material desire. Why? Because you may earn money, but you cannot eat your money to live. Can you say, can you eat your currency notes to survive? In breakfast, 100 rupees note, in lunch, 500 rupees note, hmm? and in dinner, 200 rupees note. And can you eat your currency papers? Can you eat your metal coins? No. For eating, you require food grains, is it not? So food grains are given by the demigods, the devatas, by giving rains. So we are all dependent on food grains to survive, and food grains depends on the rains, and rain comes when you do yagya or sacrifice and you worship the demigods. So that's why Krishna is saying here that the entire process of yagya, satisfying the demigods, is designed to foster a mood of dependence and service. So with this goal in mind, Krishna is trying to explain that those people who try to enjoy life without performing yagya, without giving worship to the demigods or devatas, then such people commit sin, because they are like thief. For example, suppose if I come to your home and without your permission, if I take some costly items from your table, from your bedroom, say your watch or your some nice costly item from your room, I take and secretly keep in my pocket, then what you will call me? What I will be called? I will be called as a thief. Similarly, my dear friends, we all are taking so many resources in this world. We are getting sunshine, we are getting moonshine, we are breathing the air. Just like electricity is coming in your home. Do you pay electricity bill or not? You pay an electricity bill. Similarly, you are taking so many resources in the nature: sunshine, moonshine, rains, food grains, seasons, fruits, flowers. Have you ever asked this question, who is giving this? And have you ever asked this question, that what is the bill I have to pay for this? So the bill we have to pay for using the resources of the nature is the sacrifice or yagya. And that's what Krishna is trying to explain. That if Arjuna, you have a desire to fulfill in this world, then perform karma kanda, worship the demigods. Then gradually, by performance of yagya, your heart will be purified. That's why, we should offer our food. Like in our society, ISKCON society or devotees, they offer their food to God. And by offering food to God, the food becomes prasadam. It becomes free from all sin. Otherwise, if we eat food which is not offered to God first, then that kind of food becomes pap, sin. And we only get sinful reactions by eating such a food. Like that. So, that's why Krishna says this very important verse in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Annad bhavanti bhutani parajanyat anna sambhava yagyat bhavanti parajanyo yagya karma samudbhava. Krishna is saying that don't think, Arjuna, that you can escape the performance of sacrifice. You can enjoy in this world independently. Don't think like this, because all living bodies subsist on food grains, and food grains are produced of rains, and rains are produced when you perform yagya, and yagya is born of prescribed duty. This requires little explanation. You see, my dear friends, Krishna is saying that in order to survive, we need to eat. Eating, we require grains. For grains, we require rains, and rain is given by the devatas when you perform yagya. Now somebody may say, sir, what is the connection between yagya and rains? So that's how the Lord has designed the system. For example, suppose, once upon a time, what happened? One person, he got one wound in his knees. He got one wound in his knee. So he went to doctor, and doctor gave him one pill to eat. So the patient told that doctor, are you a fool? I got a wound in my knee and you are giving me medicine in my mouth? What is this? So doctor told, sir, are you doctor or I am doctor? The patient told, sir, you are doctor. So when the patient told, when the patient told, sir, you are doctor, the doctor told that I know how the wound will be cured. You have to take the medicine from the mouth and the wound will be cured on the knees. Similarly, we may not be able to technically understand the connection between performance of yajna, sacrifice, and the rains. But that's how the Lord has designed this world. That when you do yajna, then the rain comes. Correct? And then what is yajna? So please, my dear friend, don't misunderstand yajna as only the yajna which you see, that swaha, that kind of yajna. No, that is only one understanding of yajna. By yajna, Krishna is meaning here performance of prescribed duties. When you do your duties, prescribed duties, that is also called as yajna. So when you do your prescribed duties, it becomes yajna. Because of yajna, rain comes. Because of rain, grain comes, and you live your life happily. So that's how karma kanda is important. So here Krishna explains the cycle of sacrifice, which I just now explained. So you see, my dear friends, now in this cycle of sacrifice, please try to understand. It's a very amazing concept. Very, very amazing concept. What is the cycle of sacrifice, cycle of yajna saying? See, till now, I was repeatedly telling one statement. If you might have noticed, I am saying that one has to perform prescribed duty, prescribed duty, prescribed duty. So somebody may ask, sir, what is this prescribed duty? And who has prescribed it? So prescribed duty means that duty which is prescribed, which is written, which is given to you. So now the next question comes. So where are these prescribed duties given? How do I know what is my duty? So the answer is that the prescribed duties are given in the Vedic scriptures, in the Vedas. And where does the Vedas comes from? The Vedas comes from the Lord. So now you see the cycle of sacrifice, it will be very clear. So God is there on the top. From God comes the Vedas, the Vedic scriptures. It is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord, breathed out the Vedas. When the Lord breathes, the Vedas comes out. So Vedas are not written by any human beings. They come out from the Lord only. And in this Vedas, the prescribed duty, what are your duties? It is prescribed here. If you are on a particular level of yoga ladder, you have particular duties. Then you are on another level, you have other duties. So whatever is your level, accordingly the duties are there. And when you follow those duties according to your level, then it becomes a yajna. And when you do this yajna by following the duties of your level, either karma kanda or karma yoga, then you get rains. That's how the rain comes. And because of the rains, the grain comes, and you cook grains and you eat food. Correct? And in this way, the cycle of sacrifice continues. And because such a food, when you offer to God, the result again is offered to God. So this is the cycle of sacrifice. So we should always remember the point that the prescribed duties are prescribed. I cannot on my own decide what is my duty. People try to think, oh, I think this is my duty. I think this is my duty. I think I should do this. No, there's no point of thinking. The prescribed duties are given the Vedas. So according to your level, you have to do your duties, and then it becomes yajna. And if you don't do yajna, then what will happen? You will degrade to animal life. You will go, instead of going up in the yoga ladder, you will go down in the yoga ladder again to animalistic lifestyle. So some of the practical application points from this concept of cycle of sacrifice, as you can see here, that adherence to one's prescribed duty is actually yajna. The Vedas are the ones which prescribe different types of duty for different people according to their level. Second, by participating in yajna or sacrifice, one comes in contact with transcendence or spirituality, because spirituality or transcendence, divyata, is inherent in the Vedic scriptures. The Vedas are filled with transcendence. The purpose of the Vedas is to make a person transcend, rise above material life. That's why the yoga ladder or the sacrifice or yajna starts with performing Vedic sacrifices, yajnas, homas for the satisfaction of the devatas. This is the beginning of sacrifice. But as you go ahead and higher in the yoga ladder, you increase in your sacrifice, and the highest sacrifice, as you can see in the last paragraph, the sacrifice culminates in the life of a pure devotee who do everything for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. So when we come on the platform of bhakti, then we do everything for the satisfaction of Krishna or God. And that is the highest sacrifice, highest yajna. We need not to do any other sacrifice, any other yajna when we are performing devotional service or bhakti. So in very simple words, this 4 point will help you to understand how to live our life in this world by performing yajna. The purpose of life is to please the Supreme Lord. That is the goal of life. The highest ladder, highest step on the yoga ladder. What is the best process to fulfill the purpose of life? Unalloyed, undeviated devotional service, bhakti. And how to do that bhakti? What is that yajna? The best yajna for this age is Sankirtan yajna, chanting of the holy names of God. And what is that mantra? The best mantra for this age? The Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. When you chant the Hare Krishna mantra, my dear friends, you are performing yajna. Sacrifice is bhakti sacrifice, bhakti yajna. And by this, the Supreme Lord is going to be pleased. So you need not to go to forest or here, there, or worry about all that kind of different yajnas, swaha yajna and all. You just chant the holy names of God and you are performing the best yajna process. Correct? Like that. So 500 years ago, Krishna appeared in West Bengal as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he inaugurated the Sankirtan movement, which in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said by Shukadeva Goswami that in this particular age of Kali Yuga, no other process of yajna is going to work. In this age, you cannot perform that swaha wala yajna. Nobody has the capacity to perform. Even if you try to perform, it's not going to work in this age. Nobody can go to forest and perform meditation in this age. Nobody can build big temples in this age. Nobody can become a Vedic scholar and study a lot of literatures in this age. But everybody in this world, in this age of Kali Yuga, can very easily perform the Sankirtan yajna, chanting the holy names, coming to temple, taking darshan of the Lord, taking part in kirtan, dancing in kirtan, taking prasadam. This is the process of Sankirtan. Nama smaranam. Nama smaranam atrena puman bhavati nirmala. Simply by remembering the holy names of the Lord, one can become completely purified by the process of yajna. So that is what is explained. So this was explained from in the third section from 3.10 to 3.16. Krishna told Arjuna that you have to go from Karma Kanda to Karma Yoga. Now, my dear friends, next section of this, which is coming from 3.17 onwards to 3. Almost 36. Krishna again explains Nishkam Karma Yoga, which means performing work with a detached spirit. Because now Arjuna may think that, okay, Krishna, you are saying me to perform Karma Kanda, worship demigods, and get the fruits of the results so that I can come to Karma Yoga eventually, so that I don't have any desires to enjoy. But let me tell you, Krishna, I already don't have any desires. I am already renounced. I don't want to enjoy this world. I don't want any fruits. I am detached. I am renounced. So then why should I perform all this yajna? Why should I perform all this prescribed duty, as you are saying? So then Krishna is saying the next principle, that even if you don't have desire, my dear friend, even if you are completely purified, you are free from all desire, still you cannot give up prescribed duties. Still you have to do prescribed duties. Why? Because you have Karma Kanda section is for Indriya Rama, one who delights in sense gratification. But the coming section is the Nishkam Karma Yoga, to set example, is a platform of Atma Rama, or people who are completely self-realized Atma Tripta. So, who does these people who are Atma Ramas or Atma Tripta, they don't have to perform actually any kind of work, because don't have any obligation to prescribed action, because they don't want anything in this world. So when they don't have any material desires, they are not bound to perform prescribed duties also, but still they perform what they told, to set an example. And then Arjuna is thinking, are there any examples of people who have performed their duties simply for the sake of setting example? So Krishna says, yes, there are examples. There are examples of Janak Maharaj, the father of Mother Sita. He was a Nishkam Karma Yogi, and he only performed his duty for the sake of duty, for sake of setting example. He didn't have any material desires. And then that's why Krishna says that even if you are free from all desires, to set example for others, you become a role model, and you set example for others and become a role model. So Krishna says this very beautiful verse in the Bhagavad Gita, yad yad acharati sreshthas tat tat evetaro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. Krishna says to Arjuna, my dear Arjun, in this world, common people follow the example of great people. So that's why, even if you are free from all desires, still, in order to set example for common people, you still perform your duties. Because if you don't perform your duties, even though you are free from desires, then people who are not free from desires, seeing your example, they will also run away from the duties. And when they will run away from the duties prematurely, then that will lead to chaos in the society. That will lead to problem in the society. That's why Krishna is saying that whatever action a great man performs, common men follow. Whatever standard he set by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. In fact, my dear friends, what to speak of anybody else? Even Krishna himself engages in work. You see, Krishna is God. He is the Supreme Lord. He is above this world. He is not bound by any karma. Krishna is completely free from all karma. He has no desires to fulfill. But still, Krishna says that, he engaged in prescribed duties. He says, "Oh son of Pratha, there's no work prescribed for me." Krishna is saying, within all the three planetary system, nor am I wanting anything. Krishna don't want anything, nor I have need to obtain anything. Yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. So Krishna is also performing prescribed duties, although he is beyond the yoga ladder only. He is the Supreme Lord, but still he performing prescribed duty to set example for everybody, so that people who are on the lower platform, they should not degrade. They should perform their duty. So either you have desires to enjoy, or you don't have any desires to enjoy. There's no other better way to perfection than to perform one's prescribed duty, prescribed in the Vedic scriptures, according to one's level of advancement, either Karma Kanda or Karma Yoga. And the goal of life is to rise to Karma Yoga and gradually to Bhakti by the performance prescribed duties, not to renounce the duties. Correct? Like that. So, now, in the yoga ladder, as I told, that our goal is to attain Bhakti. So now, how we go from Karma Yoga to Bhakti Yoga? So the question is, when does Karma Yoga becomes Bhakti Yoga? So as already discussed in verse 3.9, that Krishna, having described about the Karma Yoga, Krishna now mentions that he is the ultimate object of every activity, and everyone needs to perform their activities for the satisfaction of him. So in the verse 3.30, Krishna says this very beautiful verse, Mai sarvani karmani sanyas adhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yuddhasva vigata jwara. Oh Arjuna, vigata jwara, fight this battle. Yuddhasva, perform your duty. But for whom? My dear Arjuna, perform your duty for my sake. Perform your duty as an offering to me. Perform your duty being free from all sense of proprietorship only for my satisfaction. In this way, Arjuna, your karma yoga will become bhakti. This is what Krishna is trying to explain. So, my dear friends, when you see a devotee in this world, a devotee externally will appear like an ordinary person trying to enjoy this world only. Because a devotee also may go to office, a devotee also may engage in business. So externally it may appear that both are same, but there's a lot of huge difference between both of them, like earth and sky. Because a devotee is a detached worker and the ordinary person is an attached worker. So there's a difference between attached worker and detached worker. Krishna here is telling Arjuna to become a detached worker by working for Krishna. So that's why the question is, if both persons in knowledge and in ignorance who are performing work appear to be same, so then how to distinguish them? The answer is that ignorant person thinks himself as the doer of the activities, whereas the person in knowledge understands that in this world everything is done by the three modes of material nature: Rajoguna, Tamoguna, and Sattoguna. This material world is controlled by the three Shaktis: Rajoguna, Tamoguna, Sattoguna. So a person, a detached worker, work in a spirit of detachment, understanding that the three modes are controlling the activities a lot. So he remains detached. But an attached worker who looks like a detached worker, but he is attached because he thinks that I am doing these activities. Right? Like this. And finally, Krishna concludes the chapter by saying us that Arjuna, if you want to progress in this path of Bhakti Yoga through Karma Yoga, performing detached work, then you should be very careful of performing. You should be very careful of the greatest enemy. And what is that greatest enemy? So from 3.36 to 3.43, Krishna explains the greatest enemy, which is called as lust or kama. So Arjuna asked this question that, my dear Krishna, that after hearing this beautiful knowledge of karma, somebody may get inspired and he may decide, okay, so now from today onwards, I'm going to perform prescribed duty. I'm going to follow the scriptures. I'm going to perform activities only for Krishna only. But after some time, we find that such immediate inspiration goes away and a person becomes entangled in the same activities again as he was doing before. His inspiration to continue on the spiritual path does not remain. So then Arjuna is asking the question that, Krishna, what is the reason behind this? What is that force which is holding me back in progressing in spiritual life? So Krishna answers that question by saying this beautiful shloka where he says, Shri Bhagavan Vacha Kamesha Krodhesha Rajoguna Samudbhava Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyenam Yavairinam. Krishna says, my dear Arjuna, the greatest enemy of this mankind which holds back people to advance in spiritual life is lust. It is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of the contact with the material mode of passion and will later transform into wrath, which is anger, which is all devouring, sinful enemy of this world. And Krishna then explains that this lust is in different degrees. So he gives the example that just like there is a embryo covered by womb, a mirror covered by dust, and fire covered by smoke. Similarly, the lust is present in a variety of ways. And then Krishna explains finally that there are various places where lust is present. Lust is present in the senses, lust is present in the mind, lust is present in intelligence. So Krishna speaks about the strategic position of lust. And then finally Krishna gives the solution also. If you want to conquer this lust, how you should begin. So my dear friends, one very important shloka comes in that regard I like to show you, and with that we will conclude for today the third chapter. That, yeah. So how to conquer this greatest enemy, lust? As you can see here, because one should not try to conquer over the mind and intelligence first, because they are more powerful than the senses. So Krishna speaks this verse in Bhagavad Gita: Indriyani paranyahur indriyebhya paro manaha manasastu para buddhir yo buddhes parasastudha. That if you want to conquer the lust, lust is there in senses, mind and intelligence. Don't try to control the mind and intelligence immediately. You will not be successful. First, work on your senses. That's why engage your senses in bhakti activities. With your eyes, you see the darshan of the Lord. Ears, you hear about God. And with your tongue, you taste the prasadam, chant holy names. In this way, when you engage your senses in the process of bhakti, then very easily you can overcome this lust, first from the senses, then from the mind, and then finally from the intelligence, and you can progress in a spiritual life. Thank you all very much. We finally covered the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. My dear friends, frankly admitting, the concepts in this chapter are very, 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 very loaded concepts, and it was really a struggle for me to put all the concepts in just 1 hour, but I try to give you a summary here. So as just to show you the final slide, what we discussed is there's a whole, again, the overview of the chapter. So in 3.1 to 2, Arjuna's question, renunciation and action. 3.3 to 3.9, Nishkam Karma Yoga is better than renouncing work. Then Karma Kanda to Karma Yoga, which means following the yoga ladder, performing yagya, prescribed duties. Even if you don't have desire, the next section, lead by example. And finally, to progress in the spiritual life, conquer your greatest enemy, lust. So with this we end. And now, I don't know, now it's already 9:02. So in case there are any questions, we can quickly take some questions in case they are there. And with that, we'll try to end. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guruji. We have few questions in the chat.
Yeah.
Mr. CN Dar asked the question, can spirituality be explained in a little more detail?
Can spirituality or spiritual living be explained in little more detail? Actually, sir, actually we are discussing whatever we are discussing spirituality only. Because this concepts of Bhagavad Gita is actually gradually trying to bring a person to the point of practicing spiritual life. So we are trying to explain here that how Krishna is trying to inspire Arjuna to perform activities. But when he is trying to inspire Arjuna to perform activities, that does not mean that Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna to get entangled in this world. Because people think that being spiritual means renouncing the world, going to forest, or being detached. But actually, that is not the main purpose of spirituality. One can be completely spiritual while performing his duties, or while living in this world, or while doing all the activities which other people do, but he has to learn to do it for the satisfaction of God. So that's why we are gradually building up the process of spirituality. The first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita explains coming to the level of spirituality. Then the chapter number 7 to chapter number 12, Krishna will explain the whole Bhakti Yoga in great detail. First of all, we are just trying to come to the platform of Bhakti Yoga. Once we come to the platform of Bhakti Yoga, then we understand how to practice Bhakti Yoga exactly. But in between, I keep telling you some things like practice spiritual life by chanting Hare Krishna, and by only eating prasadam, food offered to God, and by studying Srimad Bhagavat or Bhagavad Gita. So what we are doing here is spirituality only. Correct? Like that. Okay, next question.
Mr. Parth asked the question, how to know in life what I am doing with anyone is due to past karma or now my present karma?
Actually, what you are doing in this life is because of your current desires. See, we may have our past karma, and because of past karma, there may be many options available in front of us. But there is one thing which is always there with you, which is called as your free will, your free choice. The past karma, the past reactions can impel you to perform a particular activity, but they cannot compel you. So we should never blame our past karma for our activities in this life. That is very bad. Because of our past karma, our past conditionings can impel us to act in a particular way, but they can never compel us. If one is proactive and one can utilize his free will, then one can change one's destiny by utilizing his ability to act. So that's why one has to become from reactive behavior to proactive behavior. Understanding his free will to choose. Like that. Yes, next question.
Mr. Shivansh Chaturvedi is asking the question, what is the best way, either Karmakand or Karma Yoga or Nishkam Karma Yoga?
So my dear friend, the best way is Bhakti Yoga, which is doing everything for the satisfaction of God. If you cannot perform Bhakti Yoga, then do Nishkam Karma Yoga, which means whatever you do, try to give up the results of your activities without any personal interest. But if you cannot do Nishkam Karma Yoga, then at least do Karma Yoga, which means at least give up the activities, but you may have some desire, some return. For example, you may give some charity and you may desire some name and fame in return, that I have given so much charity or I am so charitable. You may, with that desire, you may give charity, but still give. That's called Karma Yoga. And if you are not able to give Karma, if you are not able to do Karma Yoga also, you are not able to give anything also, you are too selfish, then at least do Karma Kanda. Worship the demigods, devatas, and fulfill your material desires. At least you do this much. But never become whimsical that I will not do Karma Kanda only. Then you are an animal only. Then you are doing sinful activities. Okay? So the best is Bhakti Yoga. But if you cannot do that, then Nishkam Karma Yoga. If you cannot do that, Nishkam Karma Yoga. If you cannot do that, then Karma Kanda. That is the minimum. Okay, next question.
Miss Jayatri is asking the question, what is the meaning of karma? Why should we worship demigods?
What is the meaning of karma? So as we have described the whole session on karma only. So karma means action. Whatever activities we do, they are called as karma. And why should you worship demigods? Because my dear friend, when you have a desire to enjoy in this world, then if you try to enjoy in this world without worshipping the demigods, which is one of the prescribed duty of a person who has desires to enjoy. So if you try to enjoy this world without worshipping the demigods, then you will get sinful reaction, papa kritya, and then you will degrade in your life. You will get animal body in the next life. So do you want animal body in the next life? No, we want to elevate in our life, correct? So if you want to elevate in our life, we should do our prescribed duty, which begins by worshipping demigods and then eventually worshipping the supreme God, Krishna, correct? So that's why we have to perform prescribed duty. Okay, thank you. Next question.
One more question is there, like, why in spite of being Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna agreed to be chariot driver? Why can't he ask someone else to be driver?
Can you repeat the question?
Why Krishna, although he is Supreme Personality of Godhead, he agreed to be chariot driver? Why can't he ask someone else to be driver?
Very amazing question. Why Krishna is becoming the chariot driver of Arjuna? Why can't he ask somebody else? Yes, Krishna, the Supreme God, he can ask anybody to become chariot driver of Arjuna. But you know, one of the qualities of the Supreme Lord is that Supreme Lord is Bhakta Vatsala. Bhakta Vatsala Govinda. They say, na? So Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardana or Bhakta Vatsala Govinda. So actually, this we will explain you in later sessions, that God has 6 opulences. He is the supreme wealthy person. He is the supreme beautiful person. He is the most knowledgeable person. He is the most powerful person. He is the most famous person. And he is also the most renounced person. So one of the opulences of God is that although he is the most powerful, most famous, most wealthy, most beautiful, most knowledgeable, but despite having all this, he is renounced. So he doesn't mind becoming a driver of his devotee. Have you ever seen in this world some rich person becoming a driver of some poor person or his servant? No. But because God is supremely renounced, although everything belongs to him, but one of his opulences is that he is renounced also. So that's why Krishna, although is Akhanda Koti Brahman Nayak, he is the Supreme Lord, he'd hardly care for his position. For out of love for his devotee, he want to serve his devotee. That's why between God and devotee, there's a relationship of love. A devotee want to love God and serve God, and God want to love and serve his devotee. And that is actually Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the process of this loving exchange between Lord and devotee. And that is what is the goal of life. Krishna is trying to explain Arjuna that only.
One more question, Praji.
Yes.
Miss Mohini is asking the question: if Krishna is free from desire, love for Radhe Ma is desire.
Sorry, if Krishna is free from
desire, then why love for Radhe Ma is desire?
Okay. Understood. So the question is that if Krishna is free from desire, then why Krishna loves the Srimati Radharani? Correct? So this question will require a lot of explanation because we think that Krishna's love for Radha is like the ordinary love between the boy and girl in this world, or husband and wife in this world. But my dear friends, this relationship of Krishna with the gopis, this relationship of Krishna with Srimati Radha is the highest understanding of the highest pedestal of spiritual life. In the relationship between Krishna and Radha, there is nothing material, there's nothing mundane, there's not even a tinge of lust. It is a pure spiritual, 100% completely Shuddha relationship. But it is the most misunderstood relationship. Nowadays on the TV serials, people play many videos, there's movies on Radha and Krishna, serials on Radha and Krishna. Actually, the knowledge of Radha Krishna and the pastimes of Radha Krishna are not meant for ordinary people of this world. The pastimes of Radha Krishna cannot be understood by ordinary people engaged in materialistic activities. Even the greatest practitioners of spiritual life also refrain from discussing about Radha and Krishna because it can be very easily misunderstood. So, in some session, we will explain the science behind the Radha Krishna relationship. Radha and Krishna are not two people, they are one people only. Srimati Radharani is the Alhadini potency, the pleasure giving potency of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Radha Krishna Eka Atma Dui Dehadhari Anyonya Vilasarasa Aswadana Kori. Like this, Shastric statements are there. Radha Krishna Eka Atma, they are one soul only. Dui Dehadhari, but they have two bodies. Anyonya Vilasarasa. But to exchange relationship of love, which is not mundane love. We don't know what is love. What you call love in this world is simply lust. There cannot be any possibility of love in this world. Love can only be between with God. There cannot be love in this world between living entities. So our understanding of love is very, very superficial. What we think of love in this world is actually lust. It's not love. So that's why this understanding of love is very, very high. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, this pastimes of Radha Krishna comes in the 10th canto. But before speaking the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, first 9 cantos are there. So that's why the so-called nowadays, people have made this Radha Krishna understanding so cheap. So-called sadhus, gurus, Bhagavat Kathakars, whenever they give a Bhagavat Katha, they directly jump to Radha Krishna pastime, Ras Leela. As if, it's some very ordinary thing. If they are really Bhagavat Kathakars, they should first explain people the first 9 cantos of Bhagavatam, which explains the science of God first. And then they should come to 10th canto where this pastimes of Krishna with the gopis is explained. But people, the so-called Bhagavad Kathakars, they want to cheat the audience. They want to cheat the people to earn money from them. Why? Because when you speak Radha Krishna pastime, people will think, oh, it is very similar to our boy-girlfriend relationship. So people enjoy, some nice entertainment happens, and they get nice money to fill their pockets. That's why all these people who speak Radha Krishna pastime in public, they are cheater number one. They should be slapped on their faces and thrown in the forest. Simply cheaters, cheating themselves, cheating the masses. First, explain people. That's why when Srila Prabhupada was preaching all over the world, there was not even one instance when Prabhupada explained about Radha Krishna, because ordinary people just can't understand. Let us first try to understand the greatness of God. Let us first try to understand the divinity of God. First try to rise ourselves from Karma Kanda to Karma Yoga, to Nishkam Karma Yoga, to Bhakti platform, and then we can appreciate what is Bhakti, what is love, what is devotional service, who is Srimati Radharani. So they are not ordinary people like that. So love between Radha and Krishna. So Krishna's desire for love towards Srimati Radharani is not like the mundane boy and girl relationship. That's the whole understanding, and there's a very wide subject. So maybe some other time we'll discuss this in great detail. I hope that at least answers the question. Thank you. Yeah. So I hope there are no more questions. Satish?
Miss Jayatri is raised a hand to ask a question.
Okay, I think the last question for today. Then we will end. You can unmute her. She has asked the question.
Prabhu, what is the meaning of Aryan?
Oh, very good question. What's the meaning of Aryan? Yeah. Actually, in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna calls Arjuna as Anaryam. Anarya Justam Swargam Akirti Karam Arjuna. So Krishna called Arjuna as Anarya. So there, Prabhupada explains in the purport that Aryan is a person who understands the value of life. There's an Aryan invasion theory, which says that the Aryans have come from European countries to India. Actually, that's a very bogus theory. First of all, that is not the meaning of Aryan. Aryan means one who understands the value of life, one who understands the goal of life, one who understands that the goal of life is not just to enjoy in this world, but to attain self-realization, spiritual consciousness. So one who understands these subject matters of life, such a person is called as Aryan. So when Arjuna was talking about that I will not be able to enjoy, I will, sinful reaction will come. So Krishna chastised Arjuna, saying that, Arjuna, you are talking like an Anarya, as if you don't know the value of life, as if you don't know the goal of life. You are talking like an Anarya. So like that, Arjuna chastised. So the meaning of Aryan is a person who knows the goal of life, the value of life, spiritual advancement. Okay? Okay. So I believe I have answered all the questions today. So thank you all very much for your kind and patient hearing. So today we have successfully completed the third chapter. Tomorrow we are moving on to the fourth chapter, which is called as transcendental knowledge or Buddhi Yoga again. So this, my dear friends, the first 6 chapters are going to be a little technical, but from 7th chapter onwards, things are going to become much more clear. So please hold on, stay on. So see you tomorrow. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you everyone for joining. So we'll put the quiz link in the WhatsApp group shortly. You can attempt the quiz. Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining.
Successful session. कितने बचे हैं टोटल भी maximum?
50, 55.
5. इतने सारे कैसे आ गए?